Don't let it roll away, roll away. Roll away, roll away. Stay tuned, we got a lot to say. Consistently rolling.
Welcome back to Consistently Rolling. I'm Alicia. And before we go any further, I want to say this out loud. My voice and my spirit has been through a week. If you hear a little softness, a pause, or me taking my time, that's just real life meeting this moment. And again, like always, I'm not showing up polished. I'm just showing up present. And honestly, this episode is exactly about that. And before we get into today's episode, I want to connect where we've been. In episode 1, I talked about coming back to the mic. Not as who I used to be and not quite who I'm becoming. It was awkward, slow, unsure, but honest as always. It was me stepping back into something my heart wasn't finished with. And in episode 2, that was me becoming again. That moment where life rearranges you without asking for permission, where everything in you shifts, but everything around you stays the same. That in-between space, that quiet becoming, that's where I've been living. And now we're here, episode 3. And this is the moment where the shift gets real. Because once you start becoming again, once something wakes up inside you, the questions come next. The questions you weren't allowed to ask. Something has been happening inside of me, and I know I'm not the only one. It's that stretch you feel, that tension, not breaking, just stretched. That moment where your spirit wakes up before your life does. You start thinking different, seeing differently, even reacting differently. And the crazy thing is, you don't force it, it just starts. And when it starts, the questions come with it. So let me be honest. I didn't just wake up one morning curious. I didn't get here by myself. 4 years. And Lil would drop things on me. Little pieces of history. Little bits of truth. Spiritual breadcrumbs. And I would argue him down. Like, you can't talk about my Jesus. You don't know what you're talking about. This is blasphemy. And because, yes, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, that shaped a lot of what I believed. But let me be clear. This isn't just a SDA thing. Because most religions and cultures teach you not to question certain things. I mean, Christians, Muslims, Catholics, Pentecostal, Jewish, even Black households with strong traditions, we all grew up with these lines we just don't cross, topics we can't touch, questions we don't ask, at least out loud. So every time he tried to open my mind, I shut it down with what I was taught. Not because it wasn't true, but because I didn't think I was even allowed to have these thoughts. Like, could we even think about that? When your spirit wakes up, You don't go looking for questions. They come find you. And they don't come politely. They don't knock. They don't ease in. They just show up all at once and super loud. Questions you never thought you'd think. Questions you avoided your whole life. I mean, questions you were told were dangerous. And the wildest part, the questions didn't feel rebellious. They feel familiar. They feel like remembering and not discovering. I remember the first questions that scared me. It was questions like, why were we taught not to explore certain things? Who told us what was dangerous? Who benefited from our fear? What if what we call intuition is actually a language? What if what we call spirituality is older than religion? And that big one, what if I wasn't wrong for being curious? These weren't questions from rebellion. They were questions from truth trying to surface. And let's be real, awakening isn't beautiful at first. It's disorienting. It feels pulled between what you taught and what you're feeling. You feel split between who you were and who you're becoming. You feel guilty for questioning, but you can't go back to not knowing. And when you're waking up spiritually while your life feels loud, that's when it feels like chaos. You think something's wrong with you. You think you're losing control. You think you're alone. But you're not losing yourself. You're losing the version of yourself that was built on fear. And here's some real that nobody speaks out loud. Awakening, it is messy. I mean, your house might be a mess. Your emotions are toe up. Your thoughts feel shattered. Your routines, they fall apart. Your motivation gone. Your sleep changes. And your habits just slip. And you start thinking, how can I talk about spiritual things when my real life feels like it's in shambles? But that's exactly where the awakening happens. You don't wake up because everything is perfect. You wake up because everything is falling apart. That's when your spirit steps forward. That's when your old beliefs loosen. That's when your truth rises. The breakdown, it's not a contradiction, it's a sign. Growing up in religion, we were taught perfection before truth, discipline before honesty, behavior before awareness. And the second we start questioning, the second we get curious, the second we feel something spiritual happening inside us, we think we're wrong. We think we're in danger. We think we're failing God. At least that's how I felt. But what if the awakening was always part of the plan? What if questioning was the doorway? What if curiosity is what leads you to the truth and not away from it? There are questions we were taught to fear. I mean, questions like, why are certain spiritual tools forbidden if our ancestors used them? Why do dreams show us things before life does? Why does intuition feel louder than logic? Why were we taught astrology was evil when every culture used the stars to understand seasons, patterns, and times? Why was numerology demonized even though every holy book is structured around numbers? And I got another one for you. Why were we not told to ask? One of the things that shook me the most when I finally stopped arguing and started listening was realizing that the things we were told to fear were actually ancient, older than religion, older than doctrine, older than the version of faith we grew up with. And that's the part nobody told us. They told us what to avoid, but not where it came from. They told us what was dangerous, but not what it meant. They taught us fear, but not the history. And history will humble you if you actually go research it. Like, for instance, let's start here. Astrology. Most of us heard it was evil, it was demonic, it was witchcraft. But when you go back far enough, you realize astrology wasn't created on TikTok, of course. It was ancient. See, African civilization used the stars as a language. Egyptians mapped the sky thousands of years before Christ. The Jewish mystics, they studied the heavens as part of a spiritual understanding. And even the Bible, the wise men followed a star, a form of astrology. So tell me, how can something be evil if it guided people to Jesus himself? It isn't evil. It was interpretation. It was a culture. It was understanding. But when people lost the context, they kept the fear. And I want to be clear. I'm not sharing this as someone who has it all figured out. See, I'm still learning what's history, what's culture, what's practice, and what's projection. I'm learning out loud, not handing down conclusions. So stick with me or throw it away. Then we're going to go into astronomy, right? It's the scientific side. The stars were the first calendar, the first clock, the first way to navigate seasons and harvests. Every ancient culture watched the sky to understand the world. They weren't worshiping the stars. They were reading them. You know, just like we read the weather app today. It was wisdom. It wasn't witchcraft. Then I learned about numerology. And listen, every religion uses numbers. The Bible is built on patterns: 3, 7, 12, 40, so on and so forth. The Quran uses numerical symmetry. Ancient African civilization assigned meaning to numbers long before any holy book was even written. So, why did we call it evil when every faith uses it? Because most of us were given rules and not context. The next thing I want to talk about is dreams. See, growing up, dreams were either meaningless or dangerous. But think about it. Every major figure in the Bible had dreams or visions. Joseph, Daniel, Peter, even Mary's warning came through dreams. Every culture believed dreams were messages from the spirit world, from ancestors, from God. And the crazy thing is, we still have dreams like that today. We just don't talk about it. Intuition was the biggest one for me because intuition is something we all feel. Even when we try to ignore it, it's that, man, something told me that I can't explain it, but I know that feeling in your chest before your mind catches up, that gut feeling. See, that's not rebellion. It's not even sin. It's not confusion. That's the spirit speaking. And every culture outside of Western religion teaches that intuition is sacred. The only place it became suspicious was the place that feared anything outside of strict rules. And let me touch this gently but directly. See, we were taught that witchcraft was evil. But historically, before colonization, a witch was a healer, an herbalist, a woman who understood the earth, a spiritual guide. It was our ancestors' medicine. But sorcery, that's something different. Sorcery is manipulation, control, using power to dominate someone. That's not intuition, it's not healing, it's not spirituality. But those two different things got lumped together. And once they were mixed, everything spiritual got labeled evil. Even the things that God used. By the time I learned the difference between intuition and sorcery, I learned that there was something else nobody ever explained. Mediums. We were told not to touch it, not to look at it, not to even think about it. But mediumship, it existed in every single culture. Long before Christianity, Islam, Judaism, before any religion had a name. And it wasn't spooky. It wasn't demonic. It wasn't chaos. It was communication. You see, in African cultures, the mediums were the elders who could hear what the physical world couldn't see. In native cultures, they were the seers. Even in the Bible, they were the prophets. In Islam, they were the dream interpreters. In Judaism, they were the mystical scribes. So when you really think and look at it, mediumship wasn't rebellion. It was responsibility. And I'm sharing this the same way I received it, as information to explore, not rules to adopt. If something resonates, sit with it. And if it doesn't, just let it go. Curiosity doesn't require agreement. See, people think mediumship means calling on the dead. No. Mediumship is sensitivity to the spiritual world. The same way some people are sensitive to sound or energy or emotions. It's not summoning, it's listening. And if we're being honest, everybody does it. But we only call certain people's mediums. Here's the part nobody teaches us. Our ancestors, they aren't gone. They're transitioned. And this isn't new. Every culture in the world believed some version of this. In African traditions, ancestors were protectors, not gods, not idols, just family who assignment didn't come or didn't stop because their body did. In indigenous cultures, they were guides, the wisdom keepers, the ones who carried messages from generation to generation. In ancient Judaism, lineage was identity. Our ancestors weren't just history, they were your foundation. And in the Bible, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're described as alive to God, which means their stories didn't end when their bodies did. That doesn't mean worship. That doesn't mean obsession. It doesn't mean calling on anything. It just means presence. It means continuity. It means legacy. It means maybe we were never as alone as we were taught to be. And as I went deeper, the more I realized something. The fear didn't come from God. It came from translation, culture, colonization, power, and misunderstanding. When religion spread, anything that couldn't be controlled, monitored, or regulated got labeled dangerous. And the easiest thing to do when you don't understand something is to demonize it. But truth, that has no problem being examined. If something is real, you don't have to fear it. And if something is false, you don't have to fear that either. Fear was the middleman, not God. And here's the thing. Once you learn the truth, you can't pretend you don't know it anymore. Once you understand the history behind the things you were taught to fear, once you see how spiritual language existed long before any religion claimed it, something starts shifting inside you. It changes. And it's not because you're trying to rebel, not because you're trying to be deep, not because you're trying to be different, but because truth rearranges you. It starts moving things inside you that you don't even know is loose. It starts calling you forward in ways your old life it can't support anymore. And that's the moment. Awakening is ending and becoming is beginning. And while all this was happening, the questions, the history, the stretching, the conversations that cracked pieces of me open. I had to face something I'd been avoiding. I woke up years ago, but I didn't move. I awakened and I didn't transition. See, I had learned the truth, but I didn't walk in it. I understood things in my spirit, but I stayed in what was familiar, what was safe. What didn't require me to change at all. But this season, life didn't give me that option to go back to sleep. And that's when I realized something. Something that I wasn't never prepared for. Becoming isn't one clean moment. It's not one breakthrough. It's not one awakening. It's layered. It's cycles. It's truth that unfolds in pieces. And there's a point in every awakening when you start asking the questions none of us want to face. Is this shift happening because of me? Is it spite of me? Or is it even through me? But see, this is where the real work begins. The part that feels like confusion, but it's actually clarity taking shape. And to understand that kind of becoming, you have to understand something deeper. There are moments in life where it is you. Moments where it's not you. And moments where both truth exists at the same exact time. And those three truths, they shape every transition. We're going to break them down just so you can have a clear vision of what it is that you may be going through and I'm definitely going through. When you start at the beginning, you start seeing yourself in ways you didn't before. You start recognizing patterns you didn't want to name. You start hearing your own reactions with new ears. You start noticing the moments where you shrink or avoid or repeat what your spirit is trying to outgrow. And the crazy part is you can't not see it. And that's the first truth of becoming. Something is finally real to you, right? Not because you're broken, but because I guess you are becoming. You don't know what yet, but it's just different. See, it's you when you're reacting to or you're reacting from old wounds. It's you when you're repeating familiar cycles because familiar feels safe. We talked about this. It's when your survival mode keeps answering questions your spirit outgrew. When your communication comes from fear instead of clarity. It's when your body remembers a version of your life your soul no longer wants anymore. And none of it's not failure. It's just a residual of who you used to be. And then there are the moments When the shift has nothing to do with wounds or habits at all. It's simply when you've outgrown where you were, right? Let's be real. It's when the change is quiet, it's not traumatic, it's not chaotic. It's when you stop fitting into places you used to twist yourself into. It's not turmoil, but it's transition, right? It's when your spirit moves first, pulling you towards something your mind hasn't yet understood, while your life tries to hold you in what's so familiar, right? It's when people around you won't always get it. Your environment might not even support it. And your old identity might not even recognize you anymore. But something in you knows it's steady, it's certain, it's unshakable, right? That clarity that rises without permission, that quiet truth that says, man, this chapter is done. Even if nothing around me looks different yet, I'm done. And it's not you being emotional. It's not you being distant. It's not you being too much. It's not your ego. It's not rebellion. It's not you thinking you are better than anyone else. It's just alignment. And this is just spirit stepping into the future before your mind fully understands the assignment. This is what it feels like when your soul says, we're done here. And your life starts rearranging itself to match what your spirit already knew. And then there's a space nobody is aware of, right? That place where both things are true. Where your spirit is pulling you forward, but your patterns are pulling you back. When your awakening is real, but so is your fear. When your intuition is loud, but your insecurities are even louder, man. When your life feels like pressure, not because you're being punished, but because you're being shaped, I guess. But it feels so much like punishment. See, this is the hardest part of becoming. The part where you're shedding and stretching at the same moment. The part where you're grieving and growing at the same time. The part where you're watching your old self dissolve and you're still trying to learn the language of the new one. You have no clue who and what they are. And it's confusing because you don't know if you're breaking down or breaking open. But I guess that confusion is proof that something real is happening. You just gotta walk through it. See, awakening shows you the truth. Transition, it teaches you how to live. And becoming again, it isn't a destination. It's a process, a rhythm, a slow unfolding into the version of your spirit that's been whispering about for a long time. It's not clean. It is not instant. It is not confidence every day. It's that in-between space where what you used to be doesn't fit anymore. But what you're becoming isn't fully formed yet. And if you're there, welcome to the club, because you're not alone. Most people never talk about this part. The questioning, the stretching, the confusion, the curiosity, the tug of war between your upbringing and your becoming, or what you know. But this is the real work of transitioning. Man, it's not perfect. It's as honest as it's going to get. It is not certainty. See, honest with your spirit, you're honest with your history, and you're honest with your becoming. And that's where grounding becomes very essential. Man, when you put all this together, the history, the questioning, the awakening, the tension, the it's you, not you, maybe both, you start to realize something. The questions we weren't allowed to ask, they just don't challenge what you believe. They challenge how you live. Because awakening shows you truth. But living that truth, it takes something deeper. And that's why this episode mattered. Not just because of the history or because of the culture, not even because of theology, but because when your spirit wakes up, you cannot pretend you do not see it. Everything becomes chaotic because your spirit wants to speak. And once the questions start, your life, it just can't stay the same as much as you want it to. See, that's the moment you step into the middle, right? That in between, that stretch between your old identity and the one trying to grow. And here's the thing. Nobody prepares you for that. Not church, not culture, not family, and never traditions. They teach you how to believe, but they don't teach you how to become. And becoming, it's not pretty. It's not polished. It's not loud. It's subtle. It's spiritual. It's uncomfortable. And it's stretching. It's walking or just asking the questions that you didn't know you were allowed to ask. And if you're in that space, you're not alone. There are people listening right now who are right where I am. Awake enough to see the truth, but not settled enough to live it fully. In that hallway, in that in between. Not who you were, but not yet who you are to be. In that space, that's where the real work, that's where it begins. That's where grounding becomes necessary. Because you can't carry new truth with old foundation. You can't walk into awakening without stability. You can't become again without something under your feet, right? And that's exactly where we're going next, y'all. We're going to talk about it. We got to. And before we go there, I want to share this. With the holiday rush going on, and I'm going to let episode 4 land at the top of the new year. I wanted to meet us where things are quieter, when our nervous systems are calmer, and when grounding can actually be received. So in episode 4, it'll be coming in January, intentionally aligned and on time for what we'll need then. We're talking about grounding, in case you didn't see. Not the aesthetic kind and not the surface level kind, but the grounding you need when your spirit shifts and your life is trying to catch up, right? The grounding that keeps you steady while you're still becoming. Yeah, we're going there. And as you can see, that's exactly what I need. So, I want to thank you again for joining us for another episode. This is Leisha. This is Consistently Rolling, where real life keeps moving, and so do we. Good night.
Even when you say that you don't wanna know, some part of you wants it, just reach deep inside. Some part of you knows that there's much more to life. And even if you turn your head to look away, your heart's constantly rolling. If you keep on ignoring, it'll roll away. Don't let it roll away, roll away, roll away, roll away. Stay tuned, we got a lot to say. Consistently rolling.